Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Center Podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time ever, I am your host, Anthony Ianni, former Michigan State basketball player and the first Division I college basketball player with autism. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's an honor and privilege to be here. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, please do. You can download the podcast on radio.com, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts from. So please subscribe and join us on this journey. So today we got an awesome guest. And first and foremost, shout out to my guy, Coach Will Gatson, I should say, producer of the show. He does incredible work for us, and I can't thank him enough for everything that he has done. So today we got an incredible guest today. This guy, in my opinion, will go down, actually has gone down in the history books of Michigan State. And just not just as a great player, but an all-around great person too. And, just give a little background about him. When he was in high school as a senior, these were his stats: 21 points, about 15 rebounds, 5 blocks a game from Warren Mott. He was a Class A All-State selection by both the Detroit News and the Free Press. He was an All-State selection by the AP Press. Led Warren Mott to a 23-3 record, reached the Class A quarterfinals for the first time in school history. He's got bragging rights over everybody at that school. He was a 2014 Macomb County Player of the Year, and he excelled as a tight end in football. We'll get into a conversation with him about this as well. Honor student, and he was considered by Ivy League member Dartmouth. And I don't want to give this one away. Actually, I'll talk about it in a little bit. But he joined Michigan State as a walk-on in 2014, 2015, despite multiple scholarship offers from D1 schools. And he earned a full ride scholarship starting the 2015-16 season. And as a senior, he put up some good solid numbers, was a Big Ten honorable member team. And he hit, maybe in my opinion, one of the biggest shots in the history of Michigan State basketball to send them to the Final Four. I think if you know by now who I'm already talking about, that is my guy, Kenny Goins. So when we come back, we're going to get right into the conversation with him. So Kenny, for the first thing I want to ask you is, because I would get this all the time from Day, and that's Draymond Green, for those of you that don't know his shorter version of his name. When I was playing, on the roster, it said Anthony Ianni from East Lansing, Michigan. And I went to Okemos. And then Day would say to me all the time, he's like, why do you say from East Lansing? Like, you went to Okemos. So I'm like, well, it's because my parents' address is located in East Lansing, so I kind of have to claim it. And he goes, like, you got to claim Okemos, man. You can't be doing that. So over the years, I started to claim Okemos more and more. So, but I got to ask you, did anybody ever give you crap like that where, it says on the roster you're from Troy, Michigan, but you went to Warren Mott?
No, not really. Most of us don't even really, because we never really had that many Michigan players. We got guys from Ohio, Indiana, even Cueto down in Texas. So for them to know the difference between Troy and Warren is minuscule to all of us at that point.
Which one do you? Oh, go ahead.
What's up?
No, go ahead.
I was saying Day, the way that he was from Michigan, he was always he presses you about anything. I remember him back in the summer, it was everything, every little thing, he always getting on you. But
so do you claim Warren or Troy then today?
I don't know. I don't got any, animosity from either side. So, like the same thing with you. I live in Troy, so at the same time, I do say, I'm from Troy to anyone from Michigan. But if they ever ask me where I went to high school, I got a lot of pride for Warren Mott.
So kind of talk to us a little bit about, you growing up. Obviously you lived in Troy, went to Warren Mott, but and obviously, it's a little bit different now than what it was, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But growing up, what was that like, growing up in that Troy Warren area at that time?
To be honest with you, my parents never really had the best jobs, worked at grocery stores and stuff like this. And a lot of Michigan people will know that Troy is a pretty wealthy area. So when I was playing these Troy sports, actually traveling deep into the heart of Troy and seeing these houses and going to my friends' houses that were just, it astonished me. But at the same time, don't get me wrong, I lived a comfortable childhood. So as I started to transition to school, your friendship, you start to get a different group. And honestly, the whole time it was starting to shift towards more Detroit because my family always lived in Detroit too. I got a bunch of cousins downtown, so I kind of just hung out all around the Metro Detroit area when I was little.
So when did sports really come into play for you? Like, were you always for me, I was always watching Michael Jordan, Kobe in his early years, and Kobe and Shaq together, Allen Iverson, still one of my favorite players of all time. So when did that kind of come into play in your life watching sports?
I mean, I was always playing sports. My dad was a big baller back in the day. He didn't really go anywhere for college, but he was my coach for like the first 3 years of basketball and stuff like that. But even like watching Michigan State, my uncle was taking me to games, football and basketball. Still got season tickets to the day. Since I was probably 5, 6, I remember watching Drew Knights up in the upper rafters. He was never sitting down low and stuff like that. But that was my dream always, was to play something. I actually liked football a lot more once I started playing that, which was a little later. But basketball was always my first love.
So was Michigan State always the dream goal, or was it just I want to play college ball in general?
I mean, when I was little, of course, it was Michigan State because like that was who I watched. I wanted to be just like that. But as you got older, you kind of start to be a little more realistic with yourself. And honestly, I was going to take a football scholarship, even in my senior year in high school.
Really?
Yeah. I went and visited UPenn down in Pittsburgh, Ivy League school, and they even said, I could probably play both sports, and I was just like, that's going to be way too much. There's no way Ivy League and 2 sports, all this. But my dad told me, wait it out, see what happens for basketball season. My AAU coach ends up hitting me up, and he's like, where would you want to go if you could go anywhere? And just bullshit. I just threw out Michigan State, and next thing I know, Stevens is at one of my games in high school. And, says he ends up saying, we don't got a scholarship for you, but there's always a spot, and it just kind of worked out to where it seemed like the right path with Michigan State, and the rest is history.
So let's kind of backtrack a little bit. I want to talk about, you mentioned it, your days as a football player, and in the years I've known you, like I didn't know that you were. I'm just gonna say you were a really good football player. You excelled at the tight end position. So was football kind of like the first sport that you tried out and you just stuck with it the longest up to your senior year, or was it both football and basketball, at the same time?
Yeah, no, I played both pretty much my entire life. I actually started football later. I was playing basketball since I was probably 5, I think is the earliest you can on like a actual team, or maybe it was even 4, because I'm a little young for my grade. But as soon as that, I played basketball from 4 until, now. But football, I started in 5th grade. My parents kind of wanted me to wait a little bit. And honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to do it. And from 5th grade up until my senior year, I played. And actually, my 5th through 8th grade, I was playing for like my city team. So I was playing for Troy and then still attending Warren schools.
Wow. So basically, you love football, but you didn't have quite the love and passion for it that you had for basketball.
Yeah, I would say they even rivaled each other. Like I said, up until my senior year, I was ready to take a scholarship for football. But, even just talking to my parents about the wear and tear that football has, later on I find out that I'm going to have the same wear and tear from basketball. But, it's really bad, especially with the concussions and whatnot. And,
oh, yeah.
I really started to think about it, and, it just helped to have my parents' wisdom, I guess you coid say, in the moment of where I was trying to rush to get to college.
And it's funny you bring up the wear and tear because, my brother-in-law who started at left tackle for Michigan State, just seeing now, like he recently had back surgery, and it was from the days of playing football. And like he's probably going to have, maybe shoulder replacement surgery, when he gets older, because again, just the wear and tear that the game of football has on your body. Like like you said, the concussions is one thing and then the injuries are another. But like I was talking to another buddy of mine who played football at Michigan State and now he's a cop in Tennessee. And it's the same thing. He's like, man, like, I get this pain in my shoulders, I get pain in my back. And it's like, it's from all the wear and tear of blocking, tackling, and making sure that you're doing all the right things and you're not screwing up, your tackling and your form and whatnot. Because you and we watched enough football in our lifetimes where you could see a guy like an all-pro linebacker. I'll use Ryan Shazier as a perfect example. Like one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten. He was all-pro NFL, and all it takes is just one bad form, and then that's it. And I think that's the other reason why, my mom, and I love my mom, she's always said to me, hey, when it comes to your kids in football, I don't know about that. I'm like, well, Mom, why not? I played it, until my freshman year. Then I wanted to focus on basketball. But again, it's the whole, look at your brother-in-law, the wear and tear on it. Look what's going on with the concussions. And so I definitely, understand, the wear and tear part of it.
Right.
Did anybody else besides Penn look at you for football?
Yeah. I actually had like quite a few offers. Usually like smaller schools, how football, there's a million scholarships to go around across the country. But I had like 50, 60, different people looking at me. And I think like 15, 18 scholarship offers.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. I had quite a few for basketball too, but not that many. It was mainly the Mid-American Conference and Oakland, local schools and mid-majors.
Right. So speaking of your basketball career, let's kind of get into that a little bit. So, before we get into your senior year, like what was the turning point for you when you were in high school? Like, all right, I have a chance to go play college ball somewhere. So these are some of the things that I need to ramp up and work on if I want to get to this level. So what was kind of like the turning point for you when it came to, all right, this is what I need to do to get to this point?
To be honest with you, in high school, I didn't really turn it on ever. I was really focused on football still. And, I was into weightlifting a little bit, but actually like honing in on the skill for basketball. In high school, it wasn't there. Once I got into like the Michigan State culture, you know what it's like. And some of the guys that you're around, Denzel, Bryn, the way those two worked out my freshman year, Tum Tum, it was hard not to get engulfed in it and want to better yourself at that point. So even throughout college, there's different levels. You think you start to work hard, like Coach Izzo says, but there's always harder you can go. And I think, as you can tell by the way that I played, once I got to my later years, I really understood what it was like to take it to the actual next level and really, really try to better myself. And, it's crazy. It's cliche, but yeah, it just shows. It always shows.
So your senior year of high school, you basically averaged a double-double. I got the stat line right here. It was 21 points a game, almost 15 boards a game, almost 5 blocks a game. You were putting up some crazy numbers, man. And not only that, like you guys were 23-3 your senior year, and you went to the quarterfinals for the first time ever. So, for something like that to have a little piece of history, and we'll get into your Michigan State history here in a minute, but just to kind of have that piece of history in your back pocket now as being one of the first teams in your school's history to accomplish that feat, what was that like for you? Like, how did it feel? Like, what was that moment like for you and for your team as well?
Yeah, I think like when you win something like that with a team, like that bond is always, like you said, you'll always have in your back pocket. It's a bond that will always be there. So like even to this day, my coach, both of my coaches, the head coach and the assistant coach, are still I probably saw them the most last summer I was home. And even with the guys on the team, it's just always an amazing feeling. And I don't go back to my high school all that often, but there's still the bigger newspaper article hanging in like the front showcase. So stuff like that is just, you can't explain or describe the feeling that you have just seeing it every time. It's such a nostalgia type feeling with just the pride and the excitement. And sometimes you can just like really get into like an adrenaline rush feeling that again, just seeing it.
For sure, man. My junior year at Okemos, we went to the state championship game and lost in double overtime. And But the one thing I will always remember from that run is, you mentioned it already, was the camaraderie that we had in that locker room. Just everybody was so tight. Everybody was cool with one another. If you saw your teammate in the hallway, you high fiving and just stopping to chat for a couple minutes. But the one thing I got out of our run, I don't know if it was the same for you or not, was just the community support that was behind us the whole time. Because, I mean, you know this, being a high school player, at Warrenmont, it's very rare. It's not every year, unless you go to like I'll use Day Day as a good example. Unless you go to a Saginaw High, where
a historic high school.
Right, an historic high school and a historic basketball program that just goes on these runs every single year. But for towns like Okemos, for Warrenmont, it's very, very rare for some of those high school teams to go on those runs that we were on. And I think that was so cool from the community aspect, was they embraced that. And Okemos didn't end up going back to the semis until 2019. And so, but again, just like you said, embracing all those moments, because they only happen so many times. And the fact that you were a part of that is something that you get to carry with for the rest of your life. And like you said, whenever you go back to your school, you get to see that newspaper article right up there in the hallways at school.
It's funny you say that too, because the newspaper article, it's a picture of all of us laying on the center floor with the championship in the middle, and the entire fan section is behind us on the floor, like it was right after the game. And it's just like it perfectly embodies the community support that you were talking about.
For sure, man, for sure. So let's get into it now with Michigan State. So like you said, DJ was at one of your games, comes up to you, hey, we don't have any scholarships right now. You could be a walk-on and then earn your way for a scholarship. But the road of getting to Michigan State wasn't easy, because like you said, your parents didn't have the greatest jobs in the world. So they had to take out a loan for you, to pay off your first year of school. So kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, was that kind of like the bump in the road as far as deciding, I want to go to Michigan State, but here's our situation. So was there ever like any other bumps in the road that kind of lead you to question whether or not you were going to be able to go to Michigan State?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like you said, before getting to Michigan State, trying to make that decision in college, it's not easy for anyone. I think that's why we see so many transfers now. My parents were the ones that helped me out the most, really. And I talked about their wisdom earlier, but when we really sat down, I started, asking them about my decision and stuff like this. My dad, this was at a point where we were definitely struggling for money, and my dad was just like, look, if this is where you want to go, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out when we get there. Don't base it on that alone. And that was the main reason that I still even considered Michigan State. But it kind of came to a point where I was narrowing it down. You go to 5 and then 3, and then I had it down between going to Central, where my sister was going at the time, or walking out of Michigan State. And it was just the pros and cons were pretty even. And I took a visit to Central Michigan. The last day of my official visit there, they said that they signed an overseas kid from one of the Balkan states, and that was the last scholarship. So 2 days later, I decided, I guess I'm going to Michigan State. And that's why I said earlier, it just kind of seemed like the path was put in front of me from some other divine power. And that just kind of, it was shown to me that this is what I should do. And, ultimately it worked out pretty well.
So was that kind of like a heartbreaking moment for you, because you go on your last visit to Central, they had that offer on the table, but when you get there, they say, oh, well, we gave, we had this other kid commit. Did that just kind of was it like one of those, are you kidding me moments? Because when I was in high school, Oakland University had offered me before the start of my junior year of high school. And, later on that summer, I was playing AAU ball with, a different team. I was with the Mustangs for 2 years, and I played with a different team, the AFE Wizards out of Dearborn. And, I was playing really well. And then there were a couple games, Oakland came to watch me in Vegas, and I didn't play my 2 best games. And then after that, I really turned it up. But after we lost in the tournament in Vegas, my dad said to me, hey, I just got a call from Oakland. They're pulling back your scholarship, and they gave it to another kid, and the kid committed. And I was heartbroken because, I was like, well, why? They said they would wait till the fall. And I want to play with Jonathan Jones, my point guard from high school, blah, blah, blah.
Was that Campy still?
Yeah, that was Campy. And Jeff Smith recruited me at the time. And
that's my guy.
I love him, man. Smitty, he's a great dude, man.
Yeah.
But then my dad basically said that's the business. That's the business of recruiting. And so, did you have that, man, like seriously moment, like when that, I don't want to say it was taken away from you, but like just when they said, hey, we had an offer on the table for you, but we gave it to another kid and he committed.
Right. No, I mean, I definitely think there was a moment where, I mean, there was just a lot of emotions in that moment in general, you know, some negative that was like, maybe I'm not good enough, you know, obviously they took someone else, to now I get to go to Michigan State, kind of my dream school from the beginning. So trying to swing the optimistic approach on it as well. But you know, I was nervous at that point. I think everyone's nervous in that stage of when they're actually going to finally commit. But I was really nervous for figuring out the money situation, which now we were at that point. And that's what, you know, led to the loan. That was the only way I was going to make it the first year. And luckily enough, we had an extra one for my second year, which I got and then just kept for the last three. So, you know, it was just a crazy time. And like I said, it was so quick. It happened on like a Sunday of my visit. And then like Tuesday, I committed to Michigan State. So the amount of different mindsets I was going through in 2 days was taxing, to say the least.
Let's talk about your first year real quick. So obviously you're at your dream school now, you know, it's where you want to be, you're on campus. When was kind of when did you get your welcome to the Michigan State basketball program welcome? When was that official welcome given to you?
I was just talking to somebody about our initiation in the weight room.
Not the wall sit, man.
The sandbags like this. What is it, 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, for some guys, it's longer than 5, man. I did mine for at least 8, 10.
Yeah, I don't know. They stop counting when the timer gets close. I'm getting stressed about it, thinking about that.
Oh, man. I remember the first time I did it, and I had no idea because, like, you know, was Vork your strength coach at the time?
Yeah, he was there for only my freshman year.
So I've known Vork since I was 10. And I remember when I told him I was coming home, I was, you know, going to I was going to come back and play at Michigan State. The first thing he says to me is, he goes, I'm going to kick your ass in the weight room, man. You just wait. And so my second day of weights, because we were all taking spring and summer classes. Ray Morgan walks in and Ray goes, hey, Vork, did AI do his wall sit yet? And I'm thinking, I'm like, what? I'm like, what the hell is he talking about wall sit for? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to do a wall sit. That's all I thought it was. I'm just going to do a wall sit and that's it. But
it's nothing.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden we go do the wall sit. Vork goes, welcome to Michigan State basketball. Sit on the wall. Yep. Like you're doing 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. And though I remember, man, like, I probably fell like 3 times because
man, picked him up real quick. They just scoop you up by the arms and just
they're like it's like dragging up like 200 plus pounds of deadlift because you can't even move. And so
you turn into one of the sandbags, honestly.
Exactly, man. And so I remember when I got done, like I was like a baby gazelle, man. Like I couldn't even stand. I couldn't. Yeah, you're
like shaking so bad.
You know this. Like you're wobbling all over the place, and then like later that day, I go back home and I took like a nap because I didn't have class or anything that day, so I slept for like 3 hours because I was so tired. But then my alarm hits, and I'm like, oh man, I got individual workouts in like 2 hours, man, and I still can't feel my legs. So you know all about the initiation, man, and just like
the initiation is bad.
Oh, dude!
Hey, it brands you as a dog though for life. You make it through initiation.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's where the whole, you know, players play, tough players win mentality is also born in our program because, you know, when you do that wall sit, you know, you got 2 choices. You know, if you fall, you can either just quit or you get right back up and you keep going until you get the job done. And so, but yeah, man. So after you have the initiation, did you ever have the mindset of, oh God, what did I just get myself into?
Of course. I don't know if you played for Izzo if you didn't question that at least like 3 times in the first couple months.
So
like in those first couple of months where you see like the schedule that we're on and stuff like that, especially like we were talking a little earlier about the camps, when you have the long camp days where you're either just hanging out with little kids all day and doing demonstrations, which are just practices, like two times a day. That stuff is rough, but
and
once
like
you get through that, it makes the season seem so much easier. Travel picks up a little bit, but I was lucky enough because I walked on and I redshirted my freshman year. It made the transition a little easier. I didn't have to worry about the actual playing. I studied this guy just like everyone else to get ready for the next years, but there was no pressure of the actual game and stuff like this. So that really helped ease into the other years. And still, like, that was like a very small period of me like, okay, I need to get a little, I need to kick it into the next gear a little bit. But because I think because I was a walk-on, I didn't take it as serious as I needed to be. And as well as the coaches will let you know as soon as he thinks you're slacking off. So there was a couple of times he told me, you got to pick it up. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd still be playing basketball. So it's the give and take of dealing with him. And I think we all know that going in. And that's, again, where the wall sit symbolizes that if you're in, you're in. If not, then, transfer.
Right. And I remember too, and you talk about Coach Iz, man, and we'll talk about this, real quick before we get into, your guys' run to the Final Four in 2015, your first year. I remember the first, you've known me for as long as you have. Like, my dad worked in Michigan State Athletics for 26 years. So I was at all those practices. I saw Iz getting in, Morris Peterson's face, Jay Rich's face. Like, I've seen all the great players get yelled at and just motivated by him. And so, the first time, he got on me about something. It was when we would do those 1 hour to 2 hour, hour and a half practices in the fall leading up to preseason. And I remember, we were doing our transition drill. And so I get in there, I get the ball at the top of the elbow, and Darrell Summers is on my team. So I gave Darrell this little, head to go back door. And that's what he did. And then I had him and I completely missed him. Like, I threw that ball way out and far in front, and it blows the whistle and he just gets on me. And here was the funny part. ESPN was there taping for their access. So a week later, you see him on TV yelling at me as I'm jogging back saying, "What kind of a pass is that? Like, what are you doing?" I'm like, he was going back door. He said, "You misread it." And it's on ESPN. I go, "Well, welcome to Michigan State, Anthony, I guess."
Yeah.
But, but after that, though, and this, he'll get on you, but then he'll pat you on the shoulder or tap you on the butt, say, "Hey, good job." And I think that's the one thing, man. Like, when he got on Aaron Henry your senior year, and it blew up. And then the other day, I don't know if you saw this or not the other day.
I did with Gabe.
Yep, him and Gabe, they get after it in the tunnel. And everybody, again, just loses their mind. And I'm sitting on my couch going, like, again, if you're not in practice, if you haven't seen us, this is why I give our media folks at Michigan State and in East Lansing and Detroit some credit, because a lot of those guys that are assigned to covering Michigan State see it in practice.
Yeah, I was about to say, even if it's not ESPN, you're gonna have like all the Lansing locals and probably Detroit.
Right, and I was talking to a couple of media guys the other day, and they were just like, "Hey, it's not like this is nothing new to us because we've seen it even when you were here 10 years ago." And I think that's the thing, man. Is like, if you're not around our culture, our basketball culture, our program, if you will, then you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know what that experience was like, your senior year, but like, it's just ridiculous to me, man. Like how, if another coach does it at another university, like a Duke or a UCLA or a Michigan, it's nothing. But then to our program, it just blows up. It's all over First Take. It's all over ESPN.
When you think about it, there's been a target on Michigan State's back for a little bit now. With even Aaron Henry, like you said, we all have experienced it, and we all kind of understand that that's like the fire to win. We both have the exact same goal. We know that, and we both are just so determined to get the job done, and that's where the emotions come from.
Right.
And like you said, at the end of the day, the way that he will positively reinforce you and off the court, the way that he acts, it's unbeatable. You know, he will go to war for any of his guys from the time you set foot on campus until the time one of you is in the ground. So that stuff is just invaluable to us as players, and it really shows the bond that we've always had, and even across different classes. You know what I mean? Me and
Yeah.
you we're quite a few years apart, and still that bond is just as tight with the guys that I play with.
Absolutely. And that's why it's a family, man. And like, there's a
Exactly.
reason why we have 2 reunions a year. We have a reunion during the football season. We have a reunion during basketball season. And like, Iz hosts a big party after the basketball reunion at his house to make sure everybody's taken care of. Everybody says what's up. Because, you know, I know he says all the time, well, the players install that. No, like, you were the one that kind of installed that because it's your program. It's your culture. And we lead by your example. But again, and I think Scott Van Pelt said it best 2 years ago on a show. You know, Coach Izzo doesn't have a 1-year problem. He's got a 4-year problem because he has a bunch of 4-year guys that love each other and that embrace the university and the culture of our program more than anything.
Right.
And so, and I think, and we'll get into the run to the Final Four in 2015. I mean, your first year, like, was there ever, and I know early on in the season, I think it was after I think Nebraska may have beaten you guys at home that year. Was there ever thoughts in the back of your mind, like, oh man, tournament streak, it's in jeopardy. Like, you know, is this what's going to happen? Like, or was there one of those moments where a guy like Brandon Dawson or a guy like Travis Trice or even, you know, Denzel got everybody together and said, no, we're going to turn this up and we're going to prove everybody why we're going to be a dangerous team in the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all, not so much we all had the thoughts, but, you know, sometimes Coach Iz gets pretty antsy about these things as soon as you lose 1 or 2 games. So he definitely had brought it up, you know, maybe 2 times throughout the season. I think we had lost to Texas A&M that year, not Texas A&M.
Texas Southern.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
And that was a fun time to deal with that. But Denzel was such a great leader in the locker room, and like you said, we had great guys all around with Trav and Brandon Dawson, you know, even Costello, and those guys had been through, you know, all the highs and lows that all of us have gone through at our time at Michigan State already, and they kept us all calm and cool, and that's why you could see at the end we had such a good push, and even led by those guys. I mean, the way they played in the actual tournament and through the Big Ten tournament and finishing out the season was just historic. And that's why Trav, you know, will always have that MVP of the region, you know, always on his resume. It was just really fun to be a part of and really fun to watch. And like I said, I wasn't under so much pressure playing, but you know as well as I, it's just as important to be that practice player, getting people ready and stuff like that. So, you know, that was just a really fun time for me. And like we all know, it's always fun when you're winning too.
And it's funny you bring up the practice players too, man, is that, you know, and I think that's the one thing that the fan base, they don't know or see a whole lot of, because, you know, when you're on the scout team and you know this, you got to go through everything, man, when it comes to your opponent. You got to know, basically, I wouldn't go this far, but I'm just kind of exaggerating here. You got to know what, you know, for me, I had to play the role of Jaron Solinger. You know, and Solinger was a player when I was at Michigan State. So I had to know what he did in the post. I had to know what his go-to moves are. I got to shoot threes from time to time on my scout team. And I love, you know.
Hey, that's why I started shooting threes, honestly.
There you go, because you were doing it with scout team. But again, you had to know everything your opponent did. It basically had to go to the point with what does Jared Solinger eat for dinner?
Right. Where's he going to stay at today?
Yeah. What hotel is Ohio State staying at this week? Or where are they going to eat at the dining hall tonight? Like, that's how far you took it when you're on the scout team. And it's so important for most athletes out there to know, whether you're on scholarship or you're a walk-on, just how important and how just like, you know, how much you got to bring to the table when it comes to knowing your role on a team. And so
doing your role also, you know, I think Coach Izzo was the best at making sure that everyone from, him down to every single one of the managers knew how important they were to the success of the team. And that's why, you even saw him yelling at managers, pretty frequently. So.
Oh yeah, like if the managers were not bringing energy, if they weren't doing their job, he would get on them. And
man, if they took too long to throw a ball into the middle of the court, he was in their face.
And that's the thing too, man, is like it is a program effort. It's not about Fife, OG, Coach Garland, DJ, the first team, the second team, the walk-ons. It's everybody. It's from the film guys. It's from the managers to the secretaries, like just
ladies in the front, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why, again, we embrace that culture so much in Michigan State Family, is because it's a family. It's a family. If one family member is successful, you're all successful. And so,
right.
But again, like, for my role, I was awarded a scholarship going into my senior year, and I had all the opportunity in the world to play, but my role that I thought was better for me was going to practice every day, beat up Day every day, beat up Nix every day, beat up AP every day, beat up Alex Garner every day, because I wanted to make sure that those guys knew that, sure, they'll play Jared Sullinger, they'll play Tyler Zeller, they'll play Harrison Barnes, they'll play the Plumlee brothers at Duke, but when they do, they're not going to be as tough as me. Like, I'm going to make sure that my team, I'm the toughest guy that my teammates are going to play against. And Iz and I had that conversation too, because, I was kind of still trying to figure out, okay, am I going to play a lot? What's my role? And when he asked me what I wanted my role to be to help the team, I said, I want to be the practice guy. That's been my role for 2 years. And if you need me in emergency situations and games, then yeah, I'll be ready to go. But if we're going to win, somebody's got to kick somebody's butt in practice. And that's going to be me, man. I want to be that guy. But so describe that feeling, man, of watching that clock against Louisville, ticking down to 0, and the horn goes off. You're going to your first Final Four in your first year.
It was so hard to grasp at that point how monumental it was, because I knew it was big. It's always been advertised. You always know growing up as a kid how big a Final Four is, but once you have it, especially being your first year, you don't realize how hard it is to get back there. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
The next couple of years, I was just like, wow, this was a lot harder than what they made it seem. Like, because again, I wasn't playing, so like I was kind of like the first spectator on the bench. I was a part of the process of making it, but it still was kind of just like I didn't understand, even in the games, how hard it was. And just to feel the joy of all the hard work kind of paying off in that moment, but still, then you realize you have more work to do. It's something that you can always look back on and be like, we did that, you know what I mean? Like you said, always in your back pocket, but in that moment, it was a little bit of a muffled excitement, because it was still kind of minuscule, because that's, again, what you expect when you go to Michigan State. It's always what they've done is go to Final Four. So to me, it was just like, I got here and this is what I've watched for the last 18 years of my life.
So you go to a Final Four, and like you said, work's not finished yet. That the famous Kobe Bryant, job's not finished yet.
Right.
I'll fast forward to a few months later, so I got to know how this went down, because Iz told me in his, when I was at State, he told me in his office. Did you get a phone call from Coach Iz, or did he call you in his office to tell you that moment of, hey, you're on scholarship?
He called me in his office, and I think I was in between like class or something like that. And this was like into the school year. So again, I was kind of like, I have to pay for another school year. It's kind of starting to think like, maybe if I don't get this scholarship, maybe I should transfer, because it's starting to really add up in debt. Just crazy thoughts going through my head. And then He called me into my office. He's like, you got to come meet with me. And that was even another time in that moment, he told me, you got this scholarship. And even then he was like, you need to work a lot harder, not just because we're giving this to you, just for yourself and stuff like this. And like I said, he always will be the first person to check you. And that's only because he wants you to be great. This is, what I had for my career was what he saw from the beginning, even taking me on. And he'll always say that. And, it was a little bit of you're always anxious, kind of on edge when you're talking to him, especially when he wants to meet with you one-on-one, just because you never know how it might go. But it was just such a kind of relief off my shoulders, and then again, more determination to better myself, get back in the gym, take it to another level. And after that, I got out, and the first thing I did was call my parents, and I just like bawled on the phone to them. I couldn't even control myself, and I think I was just right out in front of the Magic Johnson statue. And then the next thing I did, I called my aunt and uncle, and again, I was just bawling my eyes out. People are probably walking by thinking I was crazy, and I couldn't even see them. But it was just such a great feeling, and then, like I said, just a whole different type of motivation.
And that kind of pushed you more to like want to do more, as far as like, I'm not just going to be this walk-on who got a scholarship and then all of a sudden, I'm not going to play a whole lot. Like, I want to be this guy who got a scholarship from being a walk-on through all my hard work, and then I'm going to put all my hard work and I'm going to get playing time. And then that's basically what happened in your career. And so you played a little bit, that first year in 2015, 2016. But I do want to talk about this because the one thing that I wanted to ask you was, that was the year, you didn't win the Big Ten championship in the regular season, but you ended up winning the Big Ten tournament. You are favored to win the NCAA championship. But then you run into a team that basically, in my opinion, just came out of nowhere in Middle Tennessee State. So you get knocked off by them. So, and we're in a day and age now, man. And I want to bring this up because everything that happened with, with the EJ Liddell situation at Ohio State, I don't know if you saw that at all.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, just fans threatening him, just because he missed a 1-and-1. He's not just a basketball player; he's more than that. And that's the thing.
He's a person. Like, people make mistakes. Basketball is a game of mistakes. You don't score unless it's a mistake. So
exactly. So where I'm getting at this with you is, you lose to Middle Tennessee State. Just kind of talk about the fan base a little bit, because I know, and I've gone on record saying this 1,000 times, Kenny, and I'll say it, to the day I'm no longer on this earth. I think we have one of the greatest fan bases in the country. They're passionate. They're passionate. They want us to win. They want us to be great every year. That's what and their expectations are high for us. And we put those expectations out there for them, because like you said, we're Michigan State, where we should go to Final Fours every year. We should win Big Ten championships every year. And if we don't do those things, we're going to disappoint fans. It is what it is.
We're going to disappoint ourselves, though, too.
Right. Exactly. And so, but like, did any of any of our fans just like get after you guys after that loss? Like, and this, the day and age of social media, man, it's ridiculous. But like, was there ever a time where any of the fans just like lashed out at you, lashed out at, Zell or Bryn or like?
Yeah. I mean, there was quite a few times I can remember, even myself, like you said, in the social media world, people just put out whatever they want, thinking that there's zero repercussions. I don't know so much after that game specifically, but I'm sure there was people that were doing certain things. There was at a time where there was death threats on I think it was Denzel or Travis. I don't know if it was then specifically, but it was a crazy time. We had police, and like, I think it was maybe some higher up. I don't know about FBI, you know what I mean? But there was people in there investigating on where it was sent from and stuff like that. It was crazy. And it's just sad because, like you said, he's more than a basketball player. Like, all of us, no one realizes we're just 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds trying to figure out what we want to do in life, playing a game at most. And just to see the way that people act like this is life or death to them it's sad, because there's other issues, and then they're making real life threats and just talking terribly about some other human being over something that they probably couldn't do from their couch. You know what I mean?
I love that, man. I love that. And the other thing is too, is like, in the years I've done anti-bullying work, I've had one student, I've had multiple students talk to me about cyberbullying, and, or they ask me a question like, why do people do this? Why do people say this to others? Like, why would they do this?
Good questions.
Yeah, and they are. And my only answer I've had to them is because they don't understand what you go through. they don't understand. So for example, I've had kids with autism ask me, how come I get made fun of for doing this all the time? Why do I get made fun of for having my outbursts all the time? And my answer always is because they don't understand. And I've always responded with, if you bully or you disrespect somebody because you don't know what they're going through, then you shouldn't say anything at all, because you should try to walk in their shoes first and then try to say something about it. But again, if you try to walk in somebody's shoes, you're not going to say anything bad, because now you understand, then you would understand, what a person actually goes through in their life. And so
exactly. And even if you don't understand completely, at least you get a better, like you said, outlook, a little bit more of an understanding, enough to where you're like, well, maybe this isn't at least right, or maybe this person already has different things that are they're going through in their life. You know what I mean? And it's just sad. It's really sad the way that the world has transpired with social media, and the fact that everyone has this freedom of speech thing now.
No question about that, man. So now you get in your junior year, and I just want to talk about this just for a hot second, man. So you already brought it up. We talked about ESPN and everything like that. There was a lot going on in Michigan State that year, and we're not going to get into all the events that went down, but just on campus, man, like, was the vibe different? Just like I feel everything. Even when I went back and visited at the time, like, I feel like everything was just like in a giant bubble, and everybody was just like on top of each other, just kind of like looking around, and like it was definitely a different time, when everything was occurring then.
Right, and I'm not going to comment on it either, because I didn't know anything. We're just
right.
All of us have been there for the last maybe 1-2 years. Some of the older guys, but no one was around what was happening, and then it just felt like everyone was taking shots at you, from the biggest media outlets to maybe people on campus. And I felt like we had a really good. We've always had really good groups of guys when I was there, and it was really, like you said, we were all kind of backs to each other, like in a defensive position, and it just was uncomfortable for all of us. And the way that some of the media people handled themselves in our locker rooms, like, they were very abrasive. And like I said, we're just kids playing basketball, and now they were taking it to a whole nother level about everything. And we all, we're trying to figure out what had happened and grieve with the families and whatnot. But it was just so hard when everything was under a microscope. Any move you made, anything you did on social media, again, where it's the worst place ever, as coaches likes to say, it was just really, really tough to be around.
And he's right, man, about social media. Like, the
older I get, the more I agree with him.
Oh yeah, because like I didn't get on Twitter until maybe until the fall of 2012, because that's when I was just starting up my speaking career. But I just remember that we had all these different meetings about social media. We had somebody who worked with social media and media in general about just saying, don't do this, don't do that. And I remember we were all just like, man, like, why are we having these meetings? Like, and I'm sure you're probably the same way. And then in the back of your mind, you're probably like, social media ain't that bad, man. Like, it's a good platform to have.
Right.
Like you said, the older we get, it's like with our parents. Like, if our parents tell us something like, oh, don't do this, you're going to regret it. And then it's like, okay, yeah, sure, mom, sure, dad, whatever. And then a certain thing happens to you because you did something crazy. And it's like, yeah, maybe mom and dad were right. It's the same thing in this instance, man. Like, coaches, it really is. Like, oh, guys, Twitter's bad. Don't. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, coach. 5 years later.
Those tweets about him.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the other thing, man. Like, he's wise. He's wise, man. Like, he's
been around, I mean, and he's gotten to where he's gotten to for a reason. And
yeah.
The fact that he'll always say, he wanted us to trust him, but we'll never trust him enough. It was so true. It's some of the things that he says will resonate in my head for eternity.
And that's a great thing, man, is that all those lessons that he gave to us and taught us, it's something that I'm going to teach my kids. It's something I'm going to pass on to my grandkids one day. So let's get into your senior year, man. Like, this was a year where you lost Miles Bridges and Jaron. They were both lottery picks. So now the expectation is, what is this team going to be like? How are they going to be able to regroup from a devastating tournament loss to Syracuse to losing Miles Bridges and Jaren Jackson. And whenever I had the question of what do you think they're going to do next year, my response always was they're going to be pretty darn good, because here's why. Coach is, and this is just my opinion, when it comes to guys who aren't, Jaren, let's be honest, Jaren and Miles were superstars. They were.
Major, both of them, to be honest.
Exactly. And so I've always been under the impression that when it comes to a team that doesn't have superstars on his team, that's when Coach Izzo's at his best, because he takes a guy like Cassius, he takes a guy like you, Nick Ward, X, for example. I mean, X turned out to be a great player in his career. So guys that weren't up to that standard of superstar status, but everybody was just built in together. And like you said, you went through the grind of summer weights, you went through the grind of conditioning, and now you're getting that family atmosphere back and that toughness back. And so just kind of, what were your guys, obviously the expectations are every year, Big Ten champions, that's our goal. But in the locker room, what was kind of the expectations? What were you guys thinking was going to happen that year?
I mean, honestly, we said the same thing. I think we said the other couple of years. We wanted to win the Big Ten, like you said, in the Final Four for sure. But this year, we actually felt like we could because, always backtracking, we had everyone knowing their role, knowing what they needed to do for the team to succeed. As, again, from the people in the front office to every manager, everyone knew what they needed to do for us to succeed. And everyone just went out there and did their job. From the early summer and the training, we all went in, put our time in, got better, worked on our craft, to now we started actually getting in the test of it. And I think we had come out of before the Big Ten season, I think we were, 7-4. It wasn't great, but we had played all great games. And as soon as we got into the Big Ten, we had actually a pretty rough roll. I think we lost to Rutgers and someone like on the road early. And instantly we were all just looked at each other and it was just like, this is what we got. The guys in this room and the people in our program. If we can shut people out for the next couple of months, we can really do something special. And every team has that moment where they just kind of figure out like this is real and this is the turning point. And once you see that and everyone starts to click together and really push all at the same time, is when you see something special like what we had for that last couple of months.
Well, you also had one of the greatest rallying calls to the media. It's quote, "It's time to nut up or shut up," and quote. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah. So these guys are gonna be just fine. And then 3 days after you said that quote, you end up going to Ann Arbor and beat Michigan. And then you guys didn't look back after that. And speaking of Michigan, man, like, you've grown up, and when you grew up, you watch Michigan State games all the time, whether it's football or basketball. You live both sides of it. You live both sides of wins and losses against them. Those 3 games, though, in 3 weeks against those guys, may have been the most intense and maybe 3 of the greatest games I've ever seen in the rivalry. But your senior day, man, and to this day, until we get back in the Breslin Center, hopefully this fall with everything, to me, that was the loudest I have ever heard the Brez, man, on your senior day. That was crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm even getting goosebumps like thinking about it. It was just like the perfect storm, it was like the trifecta. It was Michigan at home, it was senior night, and we had the Big Ten title on the line for the game. It couldn't get any better. Like, you couldn't write that for a movie. And just the fact that, like you said, our fan appreciation and support was just at an all-time high then. Yeah, one of those nights that you'll always remember. And just the way guys played, some of the younger guys, because we all know we don't lose on senior night. It's a respect thing for the guys that you're with. And we all go through that for the first 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it might be. But to hear like Cassius with his rally call during that game for me and Quaid at halftime, it was just, it really speaks on that bond and that love for each other.
I took my my teammate and roommate Mike Prisdale to that game, and he had never been to the Breslin Center before for a Michigan State game. And when I asked him, I said, "Hey, you want to come to the game?"
That's a lucky draw for a first game.
It was, man, because he was like, "Oh, who's the game against?" I said, "It's at home against Michigan. Big Ten titles on the line last regular season." He's like, "All right," so I'm in. So when you guys went on, I think it was like that 22-2 run. Cash just hit a floater. They come down and call a timeout, and the arena just erupted,
going crazy.
He looked at me and he goes, "Dude, like." Whoa. And so to this day, he goes, that is still the greatest game atmosphere I have ever been to. And I'll never be top, Kenny, because as you know, we both, we're always going to say this. We got one of the top venues when it comes to college basketball. Nothing. No disrespect to Cameron Indoor, but Cameron Indoor's 8,000 people. They're all on top.
Small. It's pretty small.
Yeah, it's small. Like I thought it'd be like this 12,000 seat arena. And then when we went there, my redshirt junior year, I was like, man, it's the size of a high school gym in Texas.
Yeah, they make it look huge on camera, though. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. But then when you think of the Brez, man, when that place gets going, to our opponents, good luck.
I'm surprised your friend, you could even hear him talk to you that night. Like there's been multiple points where you can barely hear people sitting right next to you, even especially when you're in the huddle and stuff like that.
His facial expression was enough. Oh
man, and even the amount of people I had come to that game for my senior night was amazing. I mean, I filled up almost like half the court with just my family and friends.
I remember that.
35 tickets.
I remember that, man, because you guys were taking pictures for the trophies. I was like, man, like Kenny's rolling deep tonight on senior night. Good for him. So Big Ten champs, and it's funny because I think it was going into that summer, the 2018-2019 summer, you and I had a conversation, and I said to you, hey, you see that little gap between, next to the 2012 Big Ten championship banner? I said, my banner's getting a little lonely up there, man. Can you take care of that? And you flat out said to me, hey, I got you. I think
I told you too, it was because McQuaid hadn't been to a Final Four yet.
You did say that. You did say that to me. I do remember that. You did. And so when you guys won the Big Ten title, I was like, I'm not surprised. But then we get into the Big Ten tournament. You go through Ohio State. You go through Wisconsin. You play another incredible battle, beating Michigan. And I remember right when you hit your first free throw to basically seal it, the first thing I said was, nobody wants to play with this team in the tournament because, from a talent standpoint, we're not Duke, with all those freshmen at the time. We know that. But from a mental toughness standpoint, nobody's going to touch us. Nobody's going to touch us when it comes to our mental toughness because we're so tough. And it proved against Michigan. You guys were down like 12, 13 points at home. You had to keep rallying, keep chipping away. You were down by 13 in the second half of the Big Ten tournament final. Chip away. You're down early to Bradley, I think it was. Kept chipping away. We're good. Now let's go take out Minnesota, which we did. Let's go play a tough LSU team who we're going to out-tough. You did.
Where the two freshmen showed up crazy in Aaron and Gabe.
That was their coming out party, man. It was them just going off that night. Now the stage is set. This is the matchup that everybody wanted from the day the brackets released. Michigan State versus one of the greatest recruiting classes since the Fab Five in Duke. We're talking.
It was funny because even when you were talking about the Big Ten tournament, as soon as we sealed the game, they did it was the same day as the Sunday where they released
Selection Sunday.
Yeah. And we hadn't even gotten into the little family room or whatever they provided at the arena before they had just released the brackets, and instantly everyone just starts talking about Duke, and here comes coaches, Bradley first, and all of us right back into line and back to work.
Well, what's that saying he always says? Like, if you get me through this game, I'll get you through the weekend. Which is
you got to beat the first one, and then Sunday. Yep. If it's Saturday, then Monday's easy.
Exactly, man. So now you got the matchup, and we've had this conversation before, but I don't know if anybody else has heard it. I mean, Zion Williamson, man, the dude's a freak of nature. He's built like a freight train. And I think so. What was that experience like? I mean, you're playing against the future #1 pick in the draft, maybe he might be one of the most athletic guys I've seen. For a guy his size, he just jumps. Dude, he gets a rebound, jumps out 2 feet at 6'6" and just slams. And I'm like, man, I wish I had those hops back in the days. But like, just talk about your experience, playing a guy of his caliber, and the hype. Was the hype real with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you always try and play it down going into the game for your own sake. Mentally, you're like, oh, he can't be like that, really. You know what I mean? But once you got into the game, I mean, the shot that he blocked earlier in the game, he jumped from like the free throw line and blocked one of my jumpers completely out of the air. I was just like, I couldn't even believe it. And you see what he's doing now, even in the pros, and it's no surprise to me because he landed on me one time in the game, and I was talking down his weight. I'm like, he looks big, but there's no way he's. I think they're gonna say like 260, 280 maybe. Mm-hmm. He landed on me one time, and I was like, every single spot. But he really deserved all the credit that he got, and just the way he handled himself at Duke too, and even now. But aside from that, his athleticism and basketball skill, which is still pretty raw if you ask me, and he could end up being one of the best players to ever touch the ball.
I agree with you on that because, he did it all at Duke. He can shoot, he can drive off, and all he needed was that one step. If he
the quickest first step I've ever seen.
Yep. And if he beats you with that first step, he's going up and he's dunking over somebody. Yeah, like he'll cock that thing back and just slam it home. And I was just so impressed. I actually got to go to Spartanburg, South Carolina, 2 months later after you guys had beat them to do a basketball game and speak at an event. And that's Zion. So the event I played in, the charity event, was at Zion's high school. And
really?
Yeah, and it was crazy because I was wearing my Michigan State gear in his school, and everybody was just like, "Hey, man, like you can't be wearing that right now." So like it's Michigan State. So we had good fun with it. But I was asking so many questions about Zion, not as the player, but as the person. And like you said, from what I was told by his principal and some of his administrators over there, he's one of the most down-to-earth, coolest guys you'd ever meet. And so, like you said, and that's how he carried himself when he was at Duke. He wasn't all, bragging about this, talking trash. Dude just went out there and played, man. And I think that's the one thing I respect about him so much when he was at Duke. Dude just played. There's no trash talking. Were there a couple times I was annoyed he would dunk and then he would do the flex pose in front of the cameras? I'm like, come on, man. Like,
I mean, to be honest though, like if I had arms like that, I probably would too.
Oh, for sure, bro. So, all right, let's get to the big moment. So you guys are down 66-65 with 40 seconds to go. Now, I heard that the play was not drawn up for you.
Yeah, no, it was not.
The play was a backdoor screen lob pass for X.
Yeah, I mean, we only needed 2, but I don't know.
You had other ideas.
Out the way they did. The Cash had a really good screen, and all that year, especially from the summertime working on it, the entire preseason, Big Ten season, all that. Coach and Coach DJ were the whole time just saying, be ready to shoot. You always got to be ready to shoot. And when you're open, shoot it. I think I shot like 40% almost for the whole year. Mm-hmm. And it would just happen that I just had enough time to measure him up because he had just blocked the previous one. And I was like, that's one step too far, and I let it go. Honestly, one of the first thoughts that popped into my head after it went in was, what if I missed? But I was also just so happy at that moment. And even just on the release, it was one of those shots where you felt like you were in the gym, had just knocked down like 10 in a row and you couldn't miss. It felt great from the release. I couldn't even see it because he got so close to blocking it, but all I saw was it come out the bottom side of the net. And, that's that feeling where it's just everything from your toes to the top of your head is just tingling. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, but the clock's not done yet, right back to, got to keep working.
Did you also, and my producer Will and I joked about this, and I told him I was going to ask you this question. When you released that shot, and obviously it had to be one of those, slow moment, in time type of deals where you're watching that ball and it's just slowly going and going. Was there ever a thought through your mind that occurred saying, as you're holding the putt, was going, man, if I make this, I get free food and drinks for life in East Lansing forever and ever, man? Like, did you ever think that at all? Or were you just
no,
please go?
It's another moment where it was like I didn't understand how monumental that was. I understood how monumental the winning of the game was, but it took me a second to go back and realize that, wait, I scored the last points in the game. You know what I mean?
Not just the last points, Kenny, but it was the last points to send you to basically an event that nobody even thought you guys were going to make because everybody was Duke. That shot sent you to the Final Four. Right. Your second one in your 5-year career. And obviously, did that Final Four top 2015 easily? Yeah,
it definitely did. I mean, just from the fact that I was actually more a part of it. I wasn't a redshirt, I was playing and contributing in the actual, like, don't get me wrong, we always talk about how everyone will be contributing from the whole team, but when you don't play in the games, you know what I mean? It's a different reward. And just again, the guys that we had, and now me being also a senior and kind of being one of the people that, the younger guys are looking up to. It's just the entire experience of it, and the involvement with my family being able to travel with me and stuff like that. It's something that I'll never forget. And, now I have a bunch of video proof and video evidence I'll be able to show for the rest of my life and be like, yeah, that's what we did as a team.
One of my favorite videos of the shot, and that's what it's called, man. It's called The Shot. That's what it is. Because until somebody else, man, in my opinion, your shot will always be one of the greatest shots in Michigan State basketball history unless somebody hits a buzzer beater shot or a go-ahead shot to win the national championship in Michigan State. Your shot, in my opinion, man, will go down as one of the greatest of all time. But one of my favorite videos of the shot is when they lined up the Celine Dion song. And then once that shot goes in, all you hear is Celine Dion singing, "You're here." And I'm like, yeah. And so that gave me goosebumps every time. But you don't see a lot of those anymore. But that will always be my favorite, man, because I know that moment right there, I was like, man, like Kenny gets to keep that forever. And just like that summed up his whole career right there, with starting off as a walk-on, getting a scholarship, working to where he is now in the starting lineup, to hitting one of the greatest shots of all time. That's you in a heartbeat, man. And that's a testament right there to all your hard work and to where you have gotten today. And it's gotten you to a professional basketball career, first in Italy and now in Greece. And, basically, man, you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything you're saying, man. But even like just growing up, what does everyone dream about? When the clock's running down, you counting on your little garbage hoop or whatever. And it's just crazy that I really got to experience one of my childhood dreams. And it's still hard for me to understand how big it is, because I watched a lot of big shots happen. I mean, like Corey Lucius beating Maryland. That's one that I'll always remember.
Oh yeah.
It still hasn't settled in my mind 2 years out. And it's a testament to even just all the guys around me, because I'd never be in that position if it wasn't for everyone that I worked out with in the summertime, everyone that I learned from my first couple of years there, all the coaches for giving me the opportunity. Like said, 6-7 times throughout this podcast, it's a testament to the entire program and how hard everyone works. So it's not just that I'll be able to keep it, I'll be able to hold it with my family and my friends, but everyone there that's also part of my family will be able to hold on to that and be like, this is something that we did. Not so much those 30 seconds, but the whole Final Four in general.
I got a couple more questions for you, and then we're going to get to the fun part of the podcast here. So I wanted to bring this up earlier, but I completely forgot, but I'm going to bring it up now. You in high school were a 4-year student class president. So I got to know.
3, but yeah.
So I got to know, man, how much campaigning did you have to do for all that?
To be honest, I won in my freshman, we had one going into our sophomore year. I won in my freshman year because no one else ran. Mm-hmm. like my leadership teacher was like, "Hey, you should run for class president." And I was like, "Against who?" He was like, "No one." So I was like, "All right."
All
And
right,
then
I'll go for it.
after that, it was kind of just like no one ran against me 2 more years, and then my senior year, a girl ran against me, and I was just like, I still didn't really campaign because I was like, if she wants it, go ahead. You know, I gave my speech and everything like that, but I wasn't actively campaigning, and I don't know. I guess it's just a popularity contest or something like that. But I want to get maybe they just didn't want to switch it up for the last year. I don't know. But yeah, I ended up winning it again my fourth year. I mean, I feel like I have a little bit of a leadership quality. You know, I wanted the general interest of our students to be positive, but it wasn't like something I actively pursued. I kind of was thrust into the role.
I mean, if you're class president for 3 years, it's pretty obvious that you do probably have a good leadership quality. I mean, that's probably just a given, man.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess they saw it when I didn't.
So obviously, I mentioned you're professional now, Italy last year and Greece this year. I want to talk to you real quick about your time in Italy last year, and then I'll get to my last question for you. So obviously, you've had a great solid 2 years of your professional career, but then last year, Italy is one of the first countries to basically just shut down during the pandemic. And we had this conversation, we were texting about it, but you were telling me how you basically needed a type of hall pass just to even get out of your apartment. Like just talk about, and again, like this whole pandemic, man, it's an experience that we're all never going to forget. You know,
never want to do it again.
No, hell no, man. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what was that experience like? Because again, Italy, first country to shut down, basically need a hall pass to get out of your, out of the room, if you will.
Yeah, it was insane just because like it happened so fast. And even in the United States at the time, people hadn't even heard of it when even it started in January. I think I would say we really started talking about it in Italy. I was talking to my parents. They had no idea what it was. No one had even mentioned it. And I'm hearing about, 8,000, 9,000 deaths in Milan every couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden the cops are just like, you can't go outside. And the whole time I was in Sicily on the island, and they were saying, oh, we don't even have it. People were still double cheek kissing each other on the streets, never a mask in sight. And as a team, like we had to be careful, but we had a team come to play at our arena, and I think it was like one of the last weeks in February. They had come to play at our arena right before the game. They found out that their city went into a complete lockdown. No one could get in or out. So they didn't know what they were going to do. Like they couldn't go to their apartment for a week, and they planned for like a 48-hour trip, And as soon as that happened, it was like, that was our last game. And 3 days later, they completely shut down the season. Well, they paused the season. And then a week later, they canceled it. So like 10 days after the season had even just stopped, I was on a flight back home to the United States. And that was like one of the last flights that was going from Italy to the United States, because they were trying to lock the spread of it from Italy. And this is when people finally were starting to talk about in the United States. And I actually came home just in time for them to lock it down. I think I was home for like a week, and then they went into lockdown in Michigan. So it was just like, I can't get out of this. And I was already preparing myself, because I had, again, in January, I was warning my family about it. Like I was hearing about it, telling them like, you got to get ready. It's about to be bad. And our president, for whatever reason, is saying that it's not going to happen.
And did you ever was it kind of like a martial law type of deal in Italy, where you look out your window and you got like patrolmen like going all over the street to make sure that nobody else is out in those streets other than for getting essentials?
In my city, it wasn't as strict, because like I said, I was so far south, and to be honest, in the South, it's kind of like the Wild West. The police were there for sure more than, enforcement. So like they set up on the side of the road a little bit, but like I said, even through like February, maybe like mid-February, people were all out in the streets in my city, not really caring. In the last 2 weeks of February, though, it was ghost town. Like there was maybe a line for the grocery store, but other than that, it was you looked out, like you would go on the balcony and you would just see no one for either side of the street, and it was kind of eerie, even like when we would see pictures of Times Square with 0 people in it. It's very eerie looking, kind of like apocalyptic, and it was just really kind of just sad to realize now, especially now, that this is the world we lived in for over a year.
It's crazy, man. And I remember, and I don't know if you did this at all in elementary and middle school, but some of the assignments we had, some of our writing assignments for history were, interview your grandparents about a historical event that took place,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my late grandfather, my dad's dad, was a vet. He was part of the events that happened in World War II. And so I had to ask my grandmother, because, he had passed in 96, but I had to ask my grandmother all these different questions. And so when I look at the events of, 9/11 that happened and then the pandemic, the only thing I keep thinking about is, man, like our generation, yours and mine, we've been a part of these crazy events, the past 20 years. Our kids and our grandkids are going to ask us about this experience. And that's what I keep thinking of. And so, and I would hope that, obviously the experience you went through in Italy is something that you're probably going to talk about your kids for when they ask you one day, hey, Dad, what were you doing during the pandemic when everything went down? And the first thing you're going to say is, well, I was in a country that was one of the first to shut down.
Literally. Trying to like crawl to the airplane to get out, with embassy papers and last minute plane tickets.
Talk about crazy stress levels, man. Like like I said, when you came home, you were one of the first guys I thought of when you were out in Italy. I was like, man, like I hope Kenny gets home. And then, a couple of weeks after you got home, I text you, make sure you're good. He's like, yep, I'm back.
Yeah. Like you said, we were texting about it a bit, and even some of my teammates that I'm playing with now here in Greece, a couple of them never even made it home because some of the leagues out here just kind of did like a bubble, like the NBA. And after that, they were just like, there was no flights to the United States, so they had to stay here.
I can't even imagine that. I can't.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine not seeing my family for that long, or family and friends, and just being stuck in somewhere. Maybe you don't even speak the language,
Right.
Usually,
That's crazy, man. But it's like I told Jordan Morgan on our couple episodes ago. I mean, we're on the right path right now to getting toward the end of the tunnel, and I'm expecting a big time sports fall. I'm
expecting the next couple of years to be just roaring 20s again, or at least I'm hoping.
It'll be. I'm with you on that. I feel like that these next 10 years will be our version of the roaring 20s from 100 years ago. Like I truly believe that. So, all right, man. So we're going to get to the fun part of the podcast interview, man. Like I told you beforehand, I got some rapid fire questions for you. I got 10 of them for you. These are serious ones. These are flat out funny ones. And some just may go. And some questions you may just go like, seriously, come on, AI. So the number one, this is the number one question. This question I will always ask for my guests moving forward. So question number 1, strawberry or grape jelly?
Strawberry, but grape's also really good.
All right. Qdoba or Chipotle?
I'm gonna go with Chipotle, but I like the soy meat instead of any of the meats.
Good choice. Favorite movie character?
Of all time, maybe Wilson from Wilson from Castaway. The ball.
Oh yeah, the ball with the face on it.
He says so much with so little words.
He's an inspiration to us all, man. Favorite post-game meal?
Post-game what?
Favorite post-game meal?
Post-game meal. We went to Old Chicago quite a bit. I really do enjoy Old Chicago's food.
Ooh, they do have good food, man. Best motivational speaker not named Anthony Ianni?
I got to say E.T., my man, E.T. Love having him around.
That's a good choice, man. Question 6. If you could be any animal, what would you choose?
I think a puma, because they're just really cool, and they get to sleep in the trees, hang out, chase little rabbits or whatever they get.
All right, this is for our guys in Detroit, man, because I'm pretty sure you grew up one, and I'm still growing up one. Will the Detroit Lions ever win a Super Bowl?
No, I've given up hope, to be honest. I've given up hope.
You basically said, no, the heck with it, man. No, I'm not going to worry.
It's still my team I root for, but I'm just, like we were talking about expectations earlier, that I know where to set mine.
I love that, man. All right, question 8. Comic books or magazines?
Comic books, for sure. My dad was a big fan.
What kind? Like Batman, Superman?
All of them, honestly. He was the one that got me. I'm really big into superheroes still. You know, I've seen all the Avengers and all that, even like DC and stuff like that. It's all one of my favorites.
I love it, man. Question 9. So other than Italy and Greece, because you got to experience those two countries, what is one place you like to travel to in the world?
Thailand. I really want to go to Thailand. I've got to see a little bit of Europe, and now I want to experience, you know, Asia, South America too, but we're working.
I love it, man. And then last question. Who do you admire the most?
I think probably my sister and my dad, both of them, you know, the way that they helped me in my maturation and growth throughout the years, and just also kept me down to earth and humble. You know, me and my dad fought a lot when I was in high school. Really, you know, just alpha male type stuff when you're growing up. And once I got to college and beyond, my relationship with him was really just blossomed. And as far as my sister, she's been my best friend since maybe 9 years old. And again, we fought like cats and dogs when we were younger, like how siblings do. But it was pretty early in our childhood that we, you know, clicked and just became best friends through and through.
It's like I tell you know, people I talk to in some of my presentations, you know, at the end of the day, you know, your brother or sister, they may annoy the heck out of you. You may annoy the heck out of them growing up, but at the end of the day, you're still family. And just like
that's just because they know you better than anyone else.
Exactly. And just like all your friends, man, in life, you cherish every moment, every day with your family. All right, Kenny, to close out this interview, I do this with all my guests, and I want you to be a part of it as well. What is for the listeners this week? What is your positive message for the listeners this week?
Positive message. You know, life comes with a lot of challenges, including this COVID, but, you know, individual challenges throughout the day. And if you are always dreading them or getting down on yourself for them and not looking at them in an optimistic view, you're only doubling up on that negative side effect. So you got to approach everything with this positive outlook that everything, even if it's negative, can swing into the positive with, you know, one instance, and everything, you know, everything might actually work out well. But the first step is the mindset. I think the mindset is way more than 50%, like they say, closer to like 75. So control the mindset and everything will be good.
I love it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the one, the only, my brother, my fellow Spartan dog, the one with the greatest shot in Spartan basketball history, the one and only Kenny Goins. KG, I love you, man. Always know that. I got your back, and anything you ever need, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me out, man.
Thank you, man. Again, I want to thank Kenny Goins for coming on to the show today. It was always great to catch up with my guy, my brother, my fellow Spartan dog. And I just love Kenny, man. Like, he's a great person. His journey to Michigan State and through Michigan State has just been incredible. And now a professional basketball player. Just an incredible story, man. And I can't thank him enough for coming on. And for my positive message this week, you know, Kenny and I kind of talked about fans and social media. And we talked about the E.J. Liddell situation. And obviously at the time of this recording, you know, the NCAA tournament's going on. And I saw the things that happened with E.J. Liddell after Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts, how fans came after him. Basically, fans were threatening his life. And, you know, like Kenny said, you know, we're not, and but I say when I say we, I mean, I was a part of the basketball culture in college. Kenny was a part of it. We're more than just athletes. You know, we're 21, 22, 23-year-old kids, 18, 19-year-old kids. And there's more to a lot of our lives than just basketball. And so, and recently, you know, I've had to deal with some social media stuff, how somebody create a slander account about me. And obviously he hadn't done anything, but that's when I really started to learn more and more about, you know, how there are there are folks out there in society that want to try and bring you down. But the important thing is that as long as you know that you have a group of people like your family, your friends, your teammates and coaches that will have your back and support you, you can get through anything in life, anything. And one of my good friends sent me this quote when he saw that I was dealing with a tough time, with my social media stuff, recently. And he sent me this quote. And the quote is, when a toxic person can no longer control you, they will try to control how others see you. The misinformation will feel unfair, but stay above it, trusting that other people will eventually see the truth, just like you did. So my message is that quote right there. Be true to yourself, be kind to others, be respectful to others, and just always, always know that there are bumps in the road along the way. There are going to be some folks that want to see you just quit and not get back up. But if you fall, you keep getting back up. You fall, you keep getting back up. It's like I talked about when Arthur Ray was on in our last episode. Arthur kept falling down a bunch of times, but what did he do? He kept getting back up, kept getting back up. He failed a bunch of times and people wanted to see him fail, but he was not going to let anybody's hope of him failing get in his way of achieving what he wanted to achieve. And that's my message again. And that quote I just sent to you. And that quote I just read to you guys. So please, be true to yourself. Be kind and respectful to others. And until you understand what a person goes through in life, then why say anything? Walk a mile in that person's shoe. And then when you do eventually walk in their shoes, you will understand what a person goes through in life. So again, I'll read this one last time. When a toxic person can no longer control you, they will try to control how others see you. The misinformation will feel unfair, but stay above it, trusting that other people will eventually see the truth, just like you did. Shout out to my guy, to EJ Liddell. I never met you before, man, but you keep grinding. You stay above everything and continue to do incredible things when you're at Ohio State. And I know for a fact you're going to do incredible things as a professional athlete as well down the road. So shout out to EJ Liddell. Keep doing your thing. But when you come to Michigan State, it's a different story, man. Anyway, shout out to EJ Liddell. And remember, everybody, be kind to others, be respectful. Thank you guys so much for joining another incredible episode of the Center Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We will see you again soon. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you.
Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.